I saw my daughter-in-law's hand slide under. My wife's wheelchair 30 minutes before the ceremony started, and my own son stood right behind her, smiling. My name is Walter. I'm 66 years old. I've spent my whole life fixing things. Cars, roofs, broken relationships in this family. But nothing prepared me for what I saw that Saturday afternoon at my son's wedding. My wife, Eleanor, had a stroke 2 years ago. She can walk a few steps with help, but for anything longer, she needs her wheelchair. That chair isn't just metal and wheels to me. It's how my wife still gets to be part of this family. Still gets to sit at the table instead of watching from a hospital bed. We arrived early at the vineyard where Marcus was marrying Vanessa. Rows of white chairs faced an arch covered in roses. I wheeled Eleanor into place near the front. Close enough to see her son say his vows. She squeezed my hand and told me this was the happiest day of her life. I believed her completely. I had no reason not to. I left for 2 minutes to get her water from a table near the back. When I came back, I stopped behind a row of empty chairs. Vanessa was crouched beside Eleanor's wheelchair, her wedding dress bunched in one hand, the other hand working something loose near the back wheel. Marcus stood over her, arms crossed, watching, not stopping her, laughing, quiet enough that no one else noticed. I couldn't hear every word, but I saw Vanessa look up at him and mouth something like, "She won't even notice until it's too late." My chest went cold. My hands went numb around the plastic water bottle. I have built things with my hands for 40 years. I know exactly what a loosened wheel lock looks like. I know what happens when someone releases a bolt. Just enough that it holds for a few minutes and then gives out without warning. I could have walked over right then. I could have grabbed my son by the collar and asked him what kind of man laughs, while his new wife sabotages his own mother's wheelchair. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to do exactly that. But something told me to wait, watch, understand why. A man doesn't build a life on impulse, and I wasn't about to start on the worst possible day. So I stood behind that row of chairs, water sweating in my hand, and I said nothing. Vanessa stood up, smoothed her dress like she was brushing off dust, not deceit, and walked away toward the bridal tent. Marcus followed her, still smiling, glancing back at his mother once, just once, with a look I had never seen on his face before. Not love, not guilt, something closer to relief. I walked back to Eleanor and handed her the water like nothing was wrong. She smiled up at me, completely unaware of what had just happened 3 feet from where she sat. "Everything okay, Walter?" she asked. "You look pale." I forced a smile. "Just the heat, sweetheart." I sat down beside her, my eyes fixed on that back wheel, my mind racing through every reason a young bride would want to hurt the woman who raised the man she just promised to love forever. I didn't know it yet, but that loosened wheel was only the beginning. By the end of that night, everyone at that wedding would be looking at the bride, and no one, not even Marcus, would be laughing anymore. The ceremony began 10 minutes later. I kept one hand resting on the back of Eleanor's wheelchair the entire time, pretending to adjust her shawl, but really I was checking that wheel every few minutes. It held. Vanessa hadn't finished the job. Not yet. Marcus stood at the altar in his gray suit, and when Vanessa walked down the aisle, the whole crowd gasped at how beautiful she looked. Eleanor cried happy tears beside me. I clapped along with everyone else, but my mind was somewhere else entirely, replaying that look on my son's face. After the vows, we moved to the reception under a large white tent. I made a decision. I wasn't going to accuse anyone without proof. So I found Eleanor's wheelchair while everyone was busy with photos, and I checked the wheel lock myself. It was loose. Not broken. Loose enough that if she went over a bump, or someone pushed her a little too fast, the whole chair could tip. I tightened it with my pocket knife right there in the grass, my hands shaking with anger I hadn't let myself feel yet. That's when I overheard something that changed everything. I was walking past the catering tent when I heard Vanessa's voice, low and sharp, talking to her sister on the phone. The lawyer said once we're married, Marcus inherits half of his parents' property, automatically if anything happens to either of them. His mother's been asking questions about changing the will. I need her out of the picture before she talks to Marcus about it. I froze behind a stack of folding tables. Out of the picture. Not dead. I didn't think Vanessa wanted to kill my wife. But an accident, a fall, a hospital stay. Something that made Eleanor look confused, unstable, unfit to handle her own affairs. That would be enough to stop her. from changing anything in the will, enough to make guardianship conversations start, enough to hand control of everything to Marcus, and through him, to Vanessa, my son, my own son. Had he known about the will conversation? Had he agreed to this? Or was he just too blinded by love to see what his wife really was? I walked back into the reception in a daze, sat beside Eleanor, and held her hand tighter than I probably needed to. Then Marcus walked over, crouched down next to his mother, and said something that stopped my heart completely. "Mom, I need to talk to you and Dad about something. Important, tonight, after the dancing." Eleanor smiled and squeezed his hand. "Of course, sweetheart, anything." But I saw it in his eyes, something between guilt and fear, something that told me whatever he was about to say wasn't going to be. Good news dressed up in wedding joy. I looked over at Vanessa across the tent, laughing with her bridesmaids, champagne glass raised high, completely unaware that I now knew exactly what she was planning. The band started playing the first dance song. Marcus took Vanessa's hand and led her to the floor. And that's when Eleanor's wheelchair, the one I had just tightened with my own hands, suddenly rolled backward on its own. I grabbed the handles before the chair could roll more than a foot. My heart pounded so hard I thought everyone around us could hear it. I dropped to my knees right there in the grass, in my good suit, and checked the wheel lock again with shaking hands. It was tight. It hadn't failed. The tent floor sat on a slight slope, and a gust of wind through the open. Canvas sides had pushed the chair, just enough to move it. It wasn't sabotage. Not this time, but it didn't matter anymore. I already knew what Vanessa had planned, and I wasn't going to wait around for the next attempt to succeed. I wheeled Eleanor away from the dance floor, past the string lights and clinking glasses, to a quiet corner near the gift table where the music was softer. I knelt in front of her chair and told her everything. The loosened wheel before the ceremony, the phone call I'd overheard behind the catering tent, the words about the will, about guardianship, about making her look unfit. Her face went pale, then hardened in a way I hadn't seen since before her stroke. Back when she used to run a whole accounting office and nobody dared cross her. "She wants to make me look unfit," Eleanor said quietly, her voice steady despite the shock, "so she can control everything through Marcus." "That's what it sounds like," I said, taking her hand. "Then we need Marcus to hear this from us. Before whatever talk he's planning tonight." We didn't have to wait long. Marcus found us less than 20 minutes later. His tie loosened, his face pale under the string lights. He knelt in front of his mother's wheelchair, the same way Vanessa had knelt beside it hours earlier, but for a very different reason. "Mom, Dad, I have to tell you something before this goes any further," he said, his voice cracking. "Vanessa asked me to sign paperwork last week. A guardianship form in case you ever got confused or unstable," she said, her exact words. I didn't sign it, but she's been pushing harder every day since. And today, watching her near your chair, watching her smile afterward like nothing happened, I finally understood what she's really after. I should have stopped her hand the second I saw it move. I laughed instead because I didn't want to believe what I was seeing. "I'm sorry. I was a coward." Eleanor took her son's hand, squeezing it with more strength than I'd seen from her in 2 years. "You're here now telling us the truth. That's what matters, Marcus." I finally let out the breath I'd been holding all day. "There's more," I said, and told him about the phone call word for word, watching his face change with every sentence, watching years of trust crumble in real time. Marcus's jaw tightened. Something in him hardened into resolve, the same resolve I remembered from when he was a boy, right before he'd stand up to a bully twice his size. We didn't cause a scene. We didn't drag Vanessa in front of 200 guests, tempting as it was. Instead, Marcus walked calmly across the tent, took his new wife gently by the arm, and asked her to step outside for air. I don't know every word said in that parking lot. But Marcus came back alone 20 minutes later, eyes red, hands trembling, and told the guests Vanessa wasn't feeling well and had gone home early. The band kept playing. Nobody but the 4 of us ever knew the truth that night. The marriage lasted 11 days before Marcus filed for annulment. Once his lawyer confirmed the guardianship paperwork and uncovered months of quiet manipulation none of us had suspected. It took nearly a year for Marcus to forgive himself for not seeing it sooner. Eleanor never blamed him, not once. She told him love makes people slow to see the truth, and that seeing it at all, even late, took real courage. As for me, I still check every wheel lock before Eleanor sits down anywhere. Old habits, born from one terrifying afternoon, don't fade easily. But I've learned this. The strongest thing a father can do isn't to react in anger. It's to watch, wait, and protect the people he loves with patience instead of rage. Eleanor is still here beside me every single day, still laughing, still safe. And that, more than any wedding, is the happiest ending I could have asked for.